Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home. Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Welcome to the Free Birth Society podcast. This is a radical space for women who are ready to celebrate their autonomous choices in birth, motherhood, and beyond. Together, we'll learn about wild birth through personal narrative, we'll explore the politics of birth, and we'll analyze everything that relates to our lives as women from a feminist perspective. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Today, I have the great pleasure of welcoming to the show Dr. Elderberry. Yes, that is her real name. Elderberry is a naturopath, a vitalist, herbalist, a homeopath, and a wild mother. I'm so excited for her to share her wisdom of homeopathy, minerals, practicing herbalism, energetically, and tuning into Mother Nature as she does so well. This is an especially fun episode as Elderberry is one of our headliners at the Matriarch Rising Festival this summer, where she will be offering her teachings on homeopathy and supporting your well-being beyond the physical. Elderberry's practice is truly womb to tomb. She's deeply passionate about the power of sovereign healing. If our conversation today lights you up, you don't want to miss the chance to learn from Elderberry and our pantheon of wise woman headliners at MRF this June. Go to matriarchrisingfestival.com to claim your ticket and get ready for a life-changing 5 days. www.matriarchrisingfestival.com. Grab your ticket now. All right, enjoy the episode. Okay, we're just going to start with that your real name is Elderberry. Let's just start with that origin story because that's just too cute and too special. So how did that come to be?
Yeah, so I guess that's really the start of this whole journey for me. I actually was born with a different name and I changed it in 2020 legally. But really, for me, it's been this crazy journey of growing up in the allopathic establishment. My mom was actually a nurse, and I was just totally grew up in that whole world, the opposite of what I do now, which is, one day just biking somewhere, really kind of lost, in my early 20s. I really felt the elderberry plant actually called to me, almost like stopped my bike, and was just like, whoa, this plant, through that whole experience, just had this understanding that nature is watching me just as much as I'm watching it. And that is how everything really unfolded. It was quite a just magical experience. And then come to understand that she's like the mother of the forest, like the old grandmother. And there's all these like fairy tale teachings of the elder tree, and she's got her own wisdom, and be really like respectful to her. She has a wisdom to her. And I was like, man, if I want to embody something and like bring all my magic in this world, that is what I want to have, is like, even my name is different and it's something to me. It means something to me.
Yeah. I mean, that's what a spiritual name is, right?
Yeah.
And there's
absolutely.
such a, I mean, not as much with our generation having kids. I mean, I see a lot more intention behind name giving among my community than I think my parents certainly had, or perhaps their parents. So, okay. So then 2020 sounds like a really big year for you. Are you already in the herbalism world, or is that when it starts to pop off?
Okay. So yeah, I was just like basically going by elderberry for a long time before that. But
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Okay.
So
So you
that
were
was just
going
when
by it And that's when you made it a fish.
Yeah. Yes. That's when I did the whole legal paperwork, and I actually had to like delve into the legal world because my attorney abandoned me, and it was really crazy. But out of that whole story, there's hardships that come, and then you learn so much, you become stronger for it. But gosh, it's been wild, people not wanting to accept that as my name and being offended that's my name. And I'm like, hey, that's just part of being out of the mainstream in a way. Just like if you're born that person that you're not going to be in the mainstream and do that stuff, you kind of just get used to it after a while. You raise your kids a different way, you school them a different way, you take different medicine, that kind of stuff.
So what was the transition? I mean, now it's been 3 years. So does it feel fairly integrated in your life that this is the name you choose?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's really cute, the little kids that come to me, they like that's never been not my name.
Right.
It's like, hey, Dr. Elderberry, and we're hopping on Zoom, and it's like they can't wait to see me again, the little kids that I'm serving and stuff. It's pretty amazing. So,
and when you say doctor, what are you a doctor of?
So I'm a naturopathic doctor, but I also use vitalist herbalism. Usually naturopaths, I feel like, do a lot of supplements and stuff. I'm not into supplements, but herbalism really took over my life, and living in these beautiful mountains, there's so much medicine. So I do vitalist herbalism, and I also do homeopathy. So I blend all kinds of things together into my practice. It's pretty amazing.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. So when did you get into all of this? And this is such a big deal to have the nurse mom. I did as well, totally in the allopathic world. And are you that kind of like young woman who's already rejecting stuff super young, or, what causes this catalyst outside?
Yeah. I mean, I just remember ever since I can remember, I was really sick, and my mom there's a certain blinder that comes on at a certain point, I feel like, in that world. Like, there's nothing outside of this. Everything else is quackery. And I think that alone has never been me. I have always questioned my reality ever since childhood. And so, really questioning when like the injections were coming, or like she would bring them home, like certain injections and things like that, which I didn't even know was legal. Like vaccines and things would just be in our fridge, And so I was just like, remember her walking towards me one time with a flu shot, and I was like already full of acne, headaches all the time, so tired. And I'm just like a teenager, So I had brain fog, and I just remember being like, there's gotta be a different way. And she was coming at me with that flu shot, and I was just like, I don't want it. And I just remember that reaction from her of like, what do you mean you don't want it? And I was like, well, what's in it? Can you tell me about it? And she couldn't do it. She couldn't tell me. And that alone was just like, that's really weird. She's been giving this to so many people, but couldn't tell me,
red
what
flag.
The heck. Yeah. And even as a teenager, I was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to take it this time. And so life has given me amazing friends that have popped into my life. And one of them basically saved me she met me when I was super sick, working at like this art supply store, working through college. I was actually going to college. I first got my master's in art. So I was like super sick. And I just remember like she came in and was like, you look really, really bad. And how can I help you? And she like took me under her wing, and I was living alone, and she gave me these like supplements and was just teaching me about herbs and things, and kind of like just dropping these little hints here and there. And I just remember how that changed my outlook on what was available, because prior, you have like tunnel vision. Only go to the doctor, only ever see this one way. And I was like, what? How have I never heard of this before? So I really started to realize the truth is kind of hidden from people. And that alone was just like making me want to dig further, because I was like, what else is there? And I was so fascinated by that. And I still am that kind of a person, I feel like, because there's just more and more and more to uncover about this world that's not on the agenda. So that's really the story there. And I started to just want to help people after that. Once I felt better, I wanted to help and be a part of the change and get some kind of message out that there's just, at least know that there's a different way. You don't have to choose that way, but it is there for you. herbs are there, homeopathy is there. There's things that are natural to the body that are there. And that's a big part of just what keeps propelling me on, is seeing people who've been overtaken by that establishment and like gotten, like their bowel taken out or whatever crazy stuff happening to them, and being able to help, being able to offer some sort of balance to the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I work with a vitalist naturopath as well, and she's really changed my life introducing homeopathy. And it's, with both of our kids, it's kind of the only like thing outside of just eat an orange and go to sleep, you'll be fine, outside of
Right.
just like, you're fine. It's the only
Yes.
thing that I've really tried or turned to or gotten to know and felt some real resonance with. Yeah. And so she uses that same word. So that's really cool, because you're really actually the only other person I've ever met besides, her name is Jen Tice. Do you randomly know her?
No,
Connected to her?
no, but I
Okay.
want to now.
She's so special. She's really very, very special. And yeah, she's just taught me a lot of, it sounds like very similar to you, that she would be the friend in my life that's come in and given me, these little seeds of what is possible in this whole other arena. Because homeopathy, I mean, can anyone explain it? Do you know how to explain it? What would be kind of an introductory, seed dropping around homeopathy? Because I certainly can't explain it.
Yeah,
We just call them spirit pills.
exactly. Oh my gosh. So I don't know if anybody really can, because what they do is you're taking plant material, which that's just plants. There's minerals that you can use. Basically, homeopathy is opening our world to understand that everything can be used as medicine, which I do various classes on this. So plants, minerals, animals, even animal milks, teeth, tissues. We can use our own tissues as humans. Then there's things called imponderables. So there's things you can take like X-ray, 5G, colors, sounds. So literally anything you can possibly imagine can be taken and put into a remedy, which is then diluted, hundreds to thousands to millions of times. And that dilution allows the molecules to be broken up so small. It's like it goes in and that like spirit way, that soul way. And it's different from herbalism in that way, that herbalism is very much like a physical product. When you're taking homeopathy, you're taking that essence of the product. So it works completely opposite actually to most herbalism. It's pretty fascinating.
Right, because it's kind of, can you go maybe just one step further? So like when I take the spirit pills, if it is the correct remedy, the only word that I can come up with is like resonance. Like my system has resonance with this diluted formula, but how does it alchemize the symptoms, if that's even the correct like frame?
Yeah. So the way that I like to teach this is to teach the opposite. So I'll get to that in just a second. But with herbalism, we want to do a system of contraries. So if somebody is, really dry, like say you have a really dry cough, that's a really good example. You want to give something moistening, right? Because it's going to go in and moisten the lung tissue and help that to heal. And why you have the scratchy throat in the first place, take some marshmallow. That's when honey comes in. It's really good. Sage, mullein, those are really moistening herbs. So when you do homeopathy, that's based on a principle of similar suffering. So I always give the example of like arsenic. Arsenic is a mineral remedy. It's technically poisonous, super poisonous in its own form. So you couldn't take it like you do herbalism. But if you give, the way that they do homeopathy is through provings. They give those things to a healthy person. So there's vast, huge repertories of provings that they've done, which is everything in homeopathic medicine. It's like, what are you dreaming? What are you thinking? How is your nose? How are your eyes? How are your ears? What's your hair doing? Like, what secretions do you have? So back to arsenic. If you gave arsenic to a healthy person, what would happen? The person would start to get weak. They would start to have clear discharges coming out. they would be like failing to thrive, be very, very anxious, constantly worried about their own health, and kind of just basically this mindset of like, everybody's taking something away from me because they can't, everything's leaking away from them. They've been poisoned essentially and weakened by this process. So they watched people who were healthy taking arsenic and observed all these people. But what happens when you see somebody who comes to you? Imagine a little child. I have this happen a lot. The parents like basically describing this little kid is failing to thrive, right? They are eating not very much. They have a really limited amount of foods that they actually like eating. The consistency bothers them. They're very anxious, clear discharges. They're just weak and exhausted. And the exact portrait of what a healthy person happened when a healthy person took arsenic. That's when you would want to give this little child a homeopathic version of arsenic. And that similar suffering, that's the healing point, is where you're giving them something that's so similar. It's in when it's in that diluted form, it's actually working on the energy body. And I've seen totally turn around people's lives, from this little kid who's like so anxious and has OCD to the point they just like, they can't even take him for a walk down the street because it's like something so strange. Like they keep thinking they have to pee every 5 minutes, so they got to turn around and go back home. Now it's their mind is clear. They can sit up straighter. They're not as weak. They're taking in more foods. It's quite incredible.
So when it is the right remedy, why does the similar suffering help? Why does it shift the symptoms? Can we answer that?
That's the question. I think a lot of people are like, it's working with the vital force, it's working with the spirit, but it's quite mysterious, actually. Yeah, it's very big mystery. Like Samuel Hahnemann figured it out through wanting something for malaria. And he did the provings on himself. And there's a lot of people who really did really mess up things back then, proving things on like little kids and stuff like that. But yeah, but he figured it out through cinchona bark. And whether or not he knew exactly how this was working, and yeah, it's just that spirit, the spirit of that canceling out those symptoms is somehow this miraculous thing. And we know through measuring herbalism and things like that, because it's something we can quantify.
Right.
But when it's diluted so much, who can?
I mean, if I hadn't have experienced the results of homeopathy time and time and time again, primarily in my children, like I use it mostly with my children. I mean, well, just also they like have more obvious symptoms, I feel like, than, I mean, I guess I've used it acutely for migraines or whatever. But anyway, point being, if I had not have experienced such a long-standing body of positive and quick results, I would not be someone that would like believe it or entertain the possibility of it. Yeah. And yet, exactly, I appreciate the articulation of that, because it's kind of beyond what I could ever offer.
Yeah. And
So
I think
cool.
that's why in drugstores and things now, whenever they're giving the homeopathic version of something and they like put it on the shelf, they make it look really official rather than like this big woo-woo thing, It looks just like the ibuprofen box, and it's like,
that's funny.
I'll give it a shot, and it's like pills, and it looks kind of similar to what they're used to. So I think that's probably a component to it, is it's been marketed in a way where it's not like this big like sparks of light and like a hippie is on the cover, it's like, yeah.
And I mean, my openness to it only really began with sheer desperation. I'd say really in this last pregnancy, just getting such significant migraines and not wanting to take Excedrin, particularly when I'm pregnant. And I like kicked and screamed about it. And finally she gave me belladonna at the right time, right place. And it was one of those like level 10 migraines. And, also I should say to anyone listening, just because that was my remedy, like if you're having a migraine, it doesn't mean that is yours. It's not like a one size fits all at all. But anyway, long story short, within 15 minutes, it went from a 10 to a 2, and it was so significant.
Yes.
And I was like, oh shit. Okay. I'm going to start paying more attention to this. And it's so fun with children because there's no like risk. There's
Yes.
no, there's no side effects. There's nothing, dangerous. And it can really be this sense of almost playfulness and curiosity, with this medium that I don't think, I don't think there's a lot of options like that. I mean, herbalism could be one as well, which I'd like to pivot to in just a second. But I also wanted to ask you, a thought that I had was around cell salts. Is that something that you work much with and is in
Yeah.
your like repertoire? What do you kind of have to say about that? Because I feel like they're only recently in my consciousness like been introduced, and I think they're probably a very new concept to a lot of women listening. So maybe you could speak on it.
Yeah, I think that they're extremely beneficial. I take them almost every day. My whole family does. So basically, they are the food for our cells. And there's been some really cool books that came out that are really easily accessible to even the beginner, of looking at faces that somebody made of when you're deficient in certain cell salts.
Whoa.
And even just like under eye circles, or like where you're getting wrinkling. I mean, how many women wouldn't love this? Like, but do you have like a modeled appearance of the face? I love those kinds of things because it's so amazing for mothers even to be able to turn to a page and be like, okay, they're looking like this, and then it's got some other things written here about it, and the cell salts themselves, I mean, they're just so beautiful. I mean, even for like anemia or children that are not really growing appropriately, or um, taking certain ones when fever comes on, and they all have their own way to shine, but really even just taking them in combination as basically like a mineral supplement is quite amazing. Yeah, I've just seen even people like you were talking about, certain people are just deficient in those minerals. When they take the cell salts, they immediately have the dissolving of the headache because you're finally getting things to where they need to go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so let's get into herbalism. Do
Yeah.
plants talk to you? That's my first question.
I think if you're willing to listen to it, and like we as a culture kind of, there are like a lot in our minds. So it took me realizing that I was in my mind a lot, but I think that they're yeah, it's
Well, I mean, do they talk to you?
oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily like, hey, Elderberry, how are you doing today? Like, let's have a cup of tea and sit together. It's more like it's a gentle knowing, like inside. Um, People who are drawn to plants, I feel like, are particularly the ones who like to sit with them and like gain wisdom from them. But I don't know, people who are like nature lovers, I think that one of the things that's happening to us is we're in the field of communicating with the plants, and we're in each other's like biofield. So we're receiving information all of the time. And so I think that's one way, not necessarily through like speaking, but through just an energy exchange. Like we're so much more connected and deeply integrated than we understand. It's quite fascinating. But I think, yeah, people do like plant meditations, and even just watching people take plant medicine and how it changes consciousness. They're definitely in all these different ways speaking with us. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
So tell me about your relationship to herbalism and kind of what the arc of it has been so far, and really anything that to open up this conversation.
Yeah. So I started as an herbalist that was like, take this herb for this thing. Like I'm speaking right now on my Instagram about pain relief and dealing with pain, and because it's just one of the things that a lot of people come to me for. But in the past, like my training was to cut inflammation or really treat it allopathically. Like you give this herb whenever somebody's experiencing this thing, rather than looking at people so individually. And so I began the study of vitalist herbalism, where I'm really looking at energy. And so that's like, are you hot? Are you cold? Are you damp? Are you dry? Are you tense? Are you relaxed? And what does that look like for you? and how to pair that with herbs. And so that feels really technical to say that for the beginner, but really it's a way of saying herbs can move our tissues and our cells in such a way that we're vibrating in our own individuality at a level of health and deeper than just I'm taking this herb to take my pain away. Like if you really address the deep tissues inside, everything will kind of chink into place, even our mind, our emotions. It's quite amazing. So that's I started out like that. Now I'm dealing with how can I pair them with an herb that's going to shift them in their spirit. Like it's just I feel like I started out here and I'm like over here.
Well, I also hear it like in the way that I kind of see things. I hear there's a real paradigm shift, and the earlier way you described feels very allopathic, right? Like treat the symptom, just look at the focused, narrow, quick result, kind of consciousness. And I think that where you're arriving or where you have arrived feels much more in what I would call the sovereign paradigm, which when I say sovereign, I really mean like powerful, embodied, whole in integrity. And vital is another really, really cool word to throw in there. So yeah, that's does that resonate?
Yeah, that's one big part that I left out there, which is that how I really came to love herbalism was just being around the plants that are around me that can be useful. So, being outside for me is like, I feel like for so many cultures in the past was like, you had a mission, like you went to go chop the wood or carry the water. You went to go gather the medicine. You went to go get the stuff for weaving your basket, And for me, that's this like very traditional way of heading out to go. I don't just like hike. And I think my husband is like really hoping for the days we can just like hike. But it's like he goes out with me and I'm like stopping and I pick some stuff.
You're wandering.
Yeah. And there's purpose to it, It's like this is the time of year. It connects me with the seasons. This is the time of year that we get this herb and this is what it does. And, so I need to make sure that I'm going out and doing these things. But in a very sovereign way, I was getting free medicine, just by just knowing the habitat and going out searching for what was around me. And in every habitat, there's something. You can be in the desert and have totally different plants than me. And those are healing to you for living in that environment.
It's so cool. And so you
Yeah.
live where I live. We live in the same mountain range, which is the oldest mountain range in the world, right?
So I'm right on the edge of the Smoky and the Blue Ridge. So you're in the Blue Ridge. Yeah. Right.
Well, aren't the Smoky and the Blue Ridge the same? I thought that they call it Smoky in Tennessee, Blue Ridge in North Carolina, but they're both referring to the same mountain range.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. I'm not gonna fight to my death on that one.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because wherever we're heading out, they're like, oh, now you're in the Smokies. So yeah, maybe
it could just be language. We need like, you know how Joe Rogan has Jamie? He has that like the fact checker who's always pulling stuff up. I'm gonna do it right now because I do not want to say something stupid on this podcast. Oh, interesting. Okay, so the Smoky Mountains are a sub-range of the Blue Ridge Mountains. So the Smoky Mountain, the Great Smokies or the Smoky Mountains are the Blue Ridge Mountains, but not all of the Blue Ridge Mountains are the Smoky Mountains.
So that's even more confusing.
No, but that actually makes more sense in my brain. Okay, I'm glad. The short quick is that it is one of the oldest. There might be a range in Africa that might beat it. Because what I heard moving here was that this mountain range has the most, largely because of how old it is, but also the climate, which I guess they kind of go together, that it has the most food. It has the most medicine and the most forageable, edible plants of anywhere, I either want to say in the world or North America, I don't care. But so I'd love to hear what you have to say about foraging, because that is so in a way that's so edgy. And
Yeah.
it's, you know, there's a real talk about sovereign living. Like there's a real reality, you know, that I think most people are not familiar with, of actually going into nature, knowing something, trusting that, eating it, right? It kind of goes against our indoctrination to only trust stuff with a sticker and a label that's wrapped up in these, you know, certain stores that we trust. There's something so edgy to learn that you can trust your eyes and your knowings and your, you know, and your actions. So I would just love to hear you talk about that and how you
Yeah.
include your son in that.
Yeah. I started foraging just really being like, wow, society is heading in this really crazy direction. And what would happen if I couldn't have access to medicine? Because at that time I was studying traditional Chinese medicine. To pair this with what you were talking about with the mountains, there a lot of their medicine is harvested in a climate very much like ours, and it's on Chiangbai Mountain. It's like their sacred mountain for a lot of their wildcrafting and things like that. But I was like, you know what? It doesn't feel right to me to keep importing these herbs that I don't even know who picked them, what happened to it. You know, it's like you just have to trust a lot unless you like were watching the whole time, like the whole process. So, and then like a lot, we don't even realize a lot of our food here gets like flash treated with all this stuff before we ever actually get it. It's just, I found out whenever I was trying to make pickles and stuff like that, I was like, they do that to cucumbers? Like what? So when I started foraging, that was really my goal, is just to be like, okay, if everything shut down, could I go out and get medicine? Could I heal my family? And I think my son was this like huge driver for that in me. Something was awakening in me, and I wanted to be able to help if I needed medicine. So all the herbs that I've been learning about, I wanted to know what was local to me that I could use. And so I just started heading out on different trails. And the very first thing that I wanted to learn was like poisonous plants, because I think that that's pretty good place to start. And then you start to notice that there's not many. So we kind of get this idea in our minds that you might go out and eat something poisonous, but in reality, likely the likelihood of that is that you're eating something actually medicinal is a lot higher. So, you know, things like poison ivy, water hemlock, stuff that's like you can confuse other things for. But gosh, when I just became obsessed with the idea that I could build this apothecary for free. You know, I could come home, hang these herbs up to dry, and it was just, you know, because so many people right now are struggling financially, like with the way things are, like rent is higher and food is higher. And also like what could we get as food? And it was just a way for me to build my knowledge base, but also be like, how can I help people that are coming to me with things that are local, and how much more of a benefit would that be for them because it was local. You know, the same idea that people are like, I want to take honey because it was local to me, so it's got the, you know. So that it really, since when my son was born, it was just became very natural, like strap him on the pack, start walking. And like I just remember foraging for reishi mushrooms when he was like 5 months old. You know, he's always been a part of the journey, and now it's like evolved to where he has his favorite plants, and he has like such great, amazing, like long range eyesight and energy that he's like helping me go get things that are like way up somewhere or whatever. And it's this like partnership that we have, that he enjoys it, I enjoy it, and it's just part of his world. So he comes home and he's used to making medicine with me, encapsulating things or tincturing things with me. He's 9 now, but it's like, that's just so normal. It's just life. It's just what you do. You prepare to have the medicine ready when you need it. It's just,
so do you say like, let's go forage? And that's,
I'm pretty much like, it's this time of year. We know that we need to go get the elderberries now, or they're going to be gone. So that's kind of like more like, he's
it's
more
medicine
excited.
specific.
Yeah, or if we can make it into something really cool, like a fermented drink or something, and that's like the end
Mm.
goal too. He's really excited about that. We do a lot of picnicking so that it becomes like we can have a magical picnic as well, like at the end in a pretty spot and bring some treats. But we find ways to make it so that we can use this stuff in a really fun, like tasty way as well.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. That's awesome. So I did want to spend a little time shifting into how this influences your mothering, and you obviously become a mother after you are on this path, right? It sounds like.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, how does this influence any other aspect you might want to speak to? And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about the schooling choices as well.
Yeah. So on that same journey of just questioning everything, me and my husband have always had like really long conversations about like the just craziness that they teach in school and why. Like the things that are said to the children or brought up or just worrying about tests and grades and things like that. Did I want that integrated into my son's life? And was there another way? I had already been introduced to biodynamic farming at that point. And so we had friends who were showing us their biodynamic farms and um, learning about Rudolf Steiner, the person who created all that. He created Waldorf schooling. So through trying to figure out what Waldorf schools were around us by the time my son was like 4, he went into a Waldorf program in kindergarten, and that completely and totally changed my perspective of schooling because the way that they immediately are getting the kids around gardening, they're immediately getting the kids around animals, they're immediately responsible for something, even if it's as small as caring for the plants in the classroom. They're immediately washing dishes, they're immediately like, this is cleanup time, but in a way that's through song and story. So it's really bringing alive. This is just such a huge part of my life, is just bringing in the spirit to things. Like, what does the spirit of this whole thing actually feel like? And they believe in mirroring in Waldorf. So like who you are and present yourself to the children in an authentic way. Uh, and they're always like smiling and greeting them so joyfully is how they believe the children will receive that and mirror that into the world. Um, it's just so respectful. And so it's like they believe in the hands and the heart and this and the spirit, and it's interconnected in this way that really brings in art and music and things that are kind of like dwindling from public schools. It's like
Mm-hmm.
the whole part of Waldorf is centered around uh, just basically art and song and story, and then it evolves from there. But it's incorporating so much into that. Like there's books and books and books on why they do all the things they do, which is so masterful. But through that, I also he's enrolled in a 4 school program, so it's like I've read a lot about the usefulness of just them feeling like they have a use in the world and bringing that will force into the world with like, I can make fires, I can make tools, I can take care of myself, I am a sovereign being, and even though I'm young, I matter, that, and I'm a part of a tribe now, so like we can learn through games and all these things. It's pretty magical.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's in forest school now, but he was in Waldorf.
So right now he's in Waldorf online. So he actually does an online program that is like, I think 4 hours a week. But through those 4 hours per week, it's like they actually do so much. And then one day per week, he does a forest school program. So most of that other time, he is literally just out with me getting
Yeah.
herbs and yeah, making medicine. It's just such a huge part of our life. So that freedom, for me and for him, he has a whole next level of energy to him than like any other kid I've ever met, like an inner vitality. And so putting him in a desk at school would just not fit him. Maybe other kids that works really well, like in a Waldorf setting in the desk. Um, but I think for him, it would feel so limiting and so caging And so those 4 hours are like just perfect. He feels like he's a part of the class, and then he can be like in nature. That's just, it just feels better for him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your work, like what your work looks like now, and just go ahead and brag about yourself for a little while, and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah. So, I mean, my work now is just, I feel really, really blessed because I've built this life for myself while I work with people from all over the world. So I work exclusively online right now, and I take people of all genders, shapes, sizes, races, spiritual beliefs, anyone, for anything. So I work with, people from womb to tomb, really. And it's evolving to this place where it doesn't only have to be where we're just working on the physical stuff, that when you really hit on the right remedies, you can help people with deep subconscious programming. You can help people to these spirit levels that are like quite miraculous, not like in a religious sense, but in a sense of like who we are inside, and what's limiting us and the beliefs that we have, without me saying anything really at all. If the remedy is there, it can chink away these places that have been blocking and limiting. And, watching people build businesses after this and come out of like crazy experiences and like OCDs, and people being drawn to me with like I get the people now who have been like, I've gone to 6 different chiropractors and herbalists and 100 different naturopaths and this and this, and it's like, okay. And I'm the one that they come to and can finally see the deep stuff that wasn't so physical. So I do deal with all the manner of physical things, but realizing and pairing that with, I really think that it can be like therapy almost in a brand new way, where like we understand that there's things that are in there that can, these technologies and the herbs and homeopathy can go so much deeper than I've ever known. And I'm just watching it unfold and just going and learning from these amazing homeopaths and herbalists, and then using that as a guiding force in my own practice, and seeing like children off in new directions, like elderly people off in new directions. It's just like, it's truly miraculous. So I work with herbalism, I work with homeopathy, but it's just next level. Like there's stuff that's going to be, I can just see now, because then this is why I teach, is because I want there to be people doing this too, and then expanding on it, like get better than I am. And that's how we're going to keep unfolding in our humanity. But it's like the more darkness that comes in, the more lights that's there. So now we're at this like really dark point, but like, being at the light end of spectrum of things is like quite incredible. And usually it's like I have people come on just like this, but they're like crying, their life is falling apart. And being able to like see them the next time, and they're like radiant, joyful, like something, the spark is back. And it's just like, that's just everything to me, because I was there, that was me.
So how can women find you?
www.drelderberry.com. I'm also dr.elderberry on Instagram and Facebook and the stuff. But yeah, just if it, just see if it vibes with you, because I think the biggest thing is just finding somebody that you feel really comfortable with. But you can follow me on Instagram, and you can see our little travels up in the forests and fields, and yeah.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot. Will you come teach at MRF?
I would love to. Yeah, Ariel had actually mentioned that she wanted me to do an introduction of my minerals class. I did a class called Remineralizing the Spirit.
Oh, beautiful.
About all the different homeopathic minerals and how they work with us, not only physically, but spiritually.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want this next one. It's always over the summer solstice. I really want this one's theme to have a heavy orientation towards nourishment. Yeah, food, allies, just like
Really cool.
that's what kind of seems like is coming into view.
That's so beautiful. I would love to come see your property. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm excited.
Okay, awesome. Okay, cool. Well, all of you listening can look forward to that. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the show today. You can support this podcast by donating to it on freebirthsociety.com and leaving an awesome review on whatever platform you listen on. The more reviews, the more visibility the show gets, so let's spread the word of sovereign birth. We've always got a lot going on at Free Birth Society, and you can find out about all of it at freebirthsociety.com, at Free Birth Society on Instagram, and opt in to my newsletter below in the show notes. We offer courses on free birth, authentic midwifery, and the blood mysteries, as well as one-on-one coaching, in-person retreats, and of course, our annual Women's Festival. Our exclusive, vetted, private membership is definitely something to check out if you're looking for a community of wise sisters. Together we rise. We must speak our stories, claim our lives, and support one another. This is the living revolution, and I am so grateful to be in it with all of you. I'll leave you with our epic Free Birth Society theme song, Wild Woman by Aruba Red.
I honor you for the wisdom you held, the ancient traditions of plant medicine and womb magic. I feel the spirit of the ancestors as I place my hands upon my belly. This sacred portal will be honored. Eons upon light beams of survival, withstanding the eradication of our power by design. I will not allow the separation of our young to be forced upon me. My sisters will no longer birth in captivity. The picket line redefined from burning our wild women to paralyzing us and drugging our babes. Strapped down in a clinical white bed, drying up the milk from our breasts. Keep your needles. My family will never again be doomed to chase those dragons or your poison. We reject your fear. We choose love. Everything with intention. Death, ascension. I will fly and bring her back from the stars.